And there are layers of contingencies on those plans. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Rachel Lau. I live in Somerville. Something difficult about the situation for me is we didn't have the situation where, well, we did have the Department of Homeland Security come with the MBTA and say, hey guys, we're going to fix these biosensors, we're going to develop them. But we really didn't seem to have the situation where ordinary citizens said, hey, we want biosensors, how can the Department of Homeland Security help? I understand that there are a lot of comforts and freedoms that we give up for public health and for the public good. And for me, however irrational, there's something uncomfortable about the idea that, you know, my tiny subway station that I walk down the stairs into every morning is going to have some substance pumped into it. You know, it's a comfort issue, even though I understand it's a kill bacteria. You guys don't have any reason to think it's going to be dangerous. So my question is more for the Department of Homeland Security folks. How do you, as the research and development arm of the DHS, how do you ahead of time, like even let's say when you were evaluating which subway system to work with, I know there were just a few that seemed to be a good match, how do you ahead of time maintain the sense that you're reflecting the degree of safety that people in the community, you know, just ordinary citizens are asking for? Like, how do you keep a meter, how do you keep a measure that you're not taking too much comfort and you're really reflecting what American citizens on a regional level are asking for? Okay.
I'll just touch on it briefly and then I'll turn it over to you. But in general, the American people talk to their first responder community. They have meetings with their police departments and their fire departments, and they tell them what their concerns are. The police and the firefighters are really the front line of that access point as to what the concerns are in the communities. Those are the people that we meet with to find out what their needs are in order to be able to address the challenges that they have out there. What are the capability gaps? That's a technical term that we like to use, capability gaps. I know people go with it. But basically, it's what is it that you need to do that you cannot do right now? What do your citizens need? What do you need to be able to do your job? And because of the changing environment in the world, because of terrorism, because of the very creative ways that terrorists are trying to disrupt our lives, there's a lot of new challenges out there that we have to be aware of and we have to be ready to face. And so working with the law enforcement and the emergency response and emergency planning members in your community, that's how we find out what it is we need to research so that we can get the answers for you guys. Okay, so it's not necessarily direct from the citizens' lips. Rachel, you didn't come to us and say, I want biosensing capabilities in my subway, but you did say you wanted to be safe in your subway. And you've made that known to people. And so the MBTA folks came to us, not just them, but others all across the country. And they all said, we have concerns about what if this would happen here. When they saw what happened with the sarin attacks in the subways in Japan, and other kinds of things that happen on mass transit systems around the world, they say, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen here? Or if we can't completely prevent it, how can we respond as quickly as possible and save as many lives as we can? And so that's what we do, is we try to go forth and try to find those answers that will help to solve those challenges before they become a problem. Does that help a little bit, put it in context? And I'll turn it over to him.
Sorry, that was a very complete response. I'm not sure I can add anything, but if you had any other.
Hi, I'm back. First, I want to, as I'm sure you've gathered, I disagree with the assumptions and decisions that have got us to this point, but I want to make sure I recognize the fact that you folks are here and responding, professionally and fully to everybody's concerns. And as an American citizen, I want to thank you for that. It does give me more confidence about my government, even if I disagree fundamentally with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And please, I hope you don't take any of this personally. I'd like to get a clarification from you. You just mentioned the Japanese sarin attack, but that was a nerve gas agent, so that really would not be detected by any of the sensing.
Yes, so that particular attack, it was a nerve gas agent. As I said, we also are working actively in our department on sensors that would address that threat as well. One thing that is, I guess, maybe less known is Sharico also released anthrax. They actually, though, were very lucky. They procured a vaccine strain of anthrax. So we were very lucky in that case. They released something that was actually then going to protect people. But they did mass releases within Tokyo. That stuff has been found in a lot of places. They also used it as a targeted assassination attempt against multiple judges. And so there is some precedent. That same group that did execute that sarin attack has also been using bioweapons.
I think there's a plot of a movie there about the Brooklyn terrorist group that's releasing vaccines.
Were we always so lucky? Yes, but that was...
Another follow-up question, you said that people have asked to be safe in the MBTA. I'd like to ask Chief McMillan, what are people's #1 safety concerns on the MBTA, and has any citizen ever come to you and said they're worried about a bioweapons attack?
No passengers directly, no, but we monitor the intelligence channels a lot and listen to the chatter, as I said earlier, and the talk is out there. So when DHS said there was funding available for this sensors, we thought that it would be prudent that we would at least test them, see if they work, and so we volunteered for that system. The things that keep me up at night, I like to say that I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 3 hours screaming. So there are a number of things that concern me.
Thank you for doing that on
Yeah. But there are a number of things that concern me, and always in the background is the possible threat of a terror attack through an explosive device or a chemical attack or a bio attack. It's in the background. Is it something that we worry about day to day? No, we're more focused on day-to-day crime issues. But as a mass transit system, as the 5th largest transit system in the country, we have to be mindful of the possibility of an attack, and we have to take the appropriate protective measures.
And I mean, to be clear, I don't fault anybody at this table from taking DHS money. I think, even at the level that our economy is depressed and this functions as stimulus money, thank you for spending it and trying to stimulate the economy. One last question, I promise. Of the credible threats detected by our intelligence agencies since 9/11, how many of them would have been detected by these sensors if that attack had materialized in a subway station where they were?
I don't think that's an appropriate question to answer in this forum in terms of what the threats that have been prevented are.
I'm not asking which ones, I'm asking for actual quantitative data about the effectiveness of these sensors in the current threat environment. And as a public citizen, I think that's a highly relevant question.
Yes, so we do also monitor threat channels as well. The performance requirements for these sensors are based on what we know from that information. So
the question wasn't about theoretical attacks, because we could talk about who's chattering to whom. I'm asking of the identified credible threats, to the United States, one where the DHS raised the security alert or whatever. If that attack hypothetically had materialized on the Harvard Square subway station, how many of them would have been detected by these sensors?
Yeah, we're putting too many layers of hypothetical on that. So it's really a very difficult question to answer.
No, actually,
especially since they don't have the intel data in front of us.
I mean, I can accept that you don't have the data, but it is you know, this presentation has been full of layering hypothetical after hypothetical in terms of the threat.
I would say that thankfully we don't have a real world one to refer to.
You know, I won't go there. I will just simply say that I'm asking what I think is a simple counting exercise, whether these sensors are relevant to any, you know, credible threat the U.S. government has detected in the last decade. I think that's an absolutely fair question that gets to the heart of whether this is really an effective use of the government's anti-terrorist money.
Yeah, I think we don't.
Some of these questions can't answer them.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I mean, if you don't.
We don't have the information to answer that. We'll take it down and we may get back to you with some clarification to see if we can answer.
And we have your contact information. And it will be part of the final. Any further questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to ask a question. I'm Alice Wolf. I'm state representative. I first of all want to thank all the members of the panel and the T and all the public health departments for coming to the public and explaining this. As some of you know, I became very concerned a couple of weeks ago when I read some reports similar apparently to reports that other people read that were of great concern to me. And having worked with all of you to make sure that the elected officials were informed as well as the public, I want to thank you for following through on that. And I hope in the future that we will get a little more prior notice and make sure that, I think as some of the people have said, that people have a chance to have some input earlier in the process. I hope that people are reassured that what is happening is safe for our citizens. But going to the public early is always a good idea, particularly in Cambridge and Somerville. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank everybody for coming out this evening. Greatly appreciate it. If you didn't grab a fact sheet on your way in, please grab one on the way out. And the contact information is on there to send in any questions that come to you afterward, and also the link for the environmental assessment itself, which will give you the details.